Welcome to the MLB Early Bird Podcast for August 28th, 2020. Of course, we are here to break down this slate of MLB action, which we believe we're going to break down the slate like all these games are going to happen. We all know what's going on in our world, but we are here to break down these games. As we do the show, we do not have any DraftKings salaries. We do not have any FanDuel salaries. We don't even know what time the main slate is going to be. We're thinking the main slate is going to be at 7:05. Could be 6:37 with the Orioles and the Blue Jays. We do have a couple of doubleheader games, but we are here to break this one down. Of course, we are sponsored by Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. They are the most trusted name in fantasy sports. Yahoo DFS now includes CSV upload and CSV edit features. When you're looking to play those multiple lines, make better choices, choose Yahoo Daily Fantasy. And Adam, got to mention, just get your take right off the start. Tristan McKenzie is the most expensive pitcher tomorrow on Yahoo.
Yeah, coming off of a great major league debut, one of the top pitching prospects for Cleveland. Looked really, really good in his start. Not quite sure I agree with him being the most expensive pitcher on the slate in his second major league start against St. Louis, but certainly has the pedigree and looked really good his first time out.
Yeah, Zach Greinke, the second most expensive pitcher on Yahoo at $45. Kyle Hendricks, $43. Frankie Montas at $42. Those are your pitchers that are over $40 on Yahoo, so you definitely got to check out Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. They are the sponsor of this podcast. But got 17 total games tomorrow. Of course, a couple of those games we do not expect to. We got two doubleheaders with the Twins and Tigers, Mets and the Yankees. But we're going to kick off by talking about the games that start in the 7 p.m. Eastern Time hour. We'll start off with the Braves and the Phillies. We're expecting that Robbie Erlin is going to get the start for the Braves, Zach Wheeler to get the start for the Phillies.
Yeah, so Robbie Erlin in a tough spot against Atlanta. Yeah, in a tough spot against Philly. Got the teams mixed up, but has limited sample this year. Has given up a lot of power to righties and a lot of power to lefties. Not really a matchup where I'm looking to get to. I'm more likely to be looking to bats like Andrew McCutchen, like Rhys Hoskins. On the other side, though, definitely some interest in Wheeler. Atlanta, I believe, had or got Ronald Acuna back. So, yeah, he should be in the lineup. That obviously is another really, really potent bat for the Braves, but it also does give you some strikeouts. But we've talked about it before. It's a lineup that has plenty of strikeouts in it, a little bit different than it used to be in the past. Still a really dangerous lineup, but depending where the salary comes in on Zach Wheeler, he does have good strikeout stuff. He does generally do a good job of limiting power as well. The strikeouts haven't been there for him this season. Only a 17% strikeout percentage to lefties, 15% to righties. But last season he struck out about 23% of righties, 24% of lefties. I expect he will sooner or later get back to those numbers.
Yeah, I should mention that Bryce Harper had a 2-run homer off Robbie in the last time they went up against each other. Back on August 10th, it was, he did allow 3 homers and 43 pitches in a relief appearance against the Phillies back on August 10th. So we'll see how this one goes. But, I mean, look, it is kind of tough to completely break the bats down this one because we have no clue what the prices are going to be.
Yeah, exactly. You're kind of just guessing. And we know that yesterday the Philly bats were really cheap. I don't know if that'll be the case against Erlin or not. If it is, then obviously you're looking to Hoskins, McCutchen, Real Muto. On the other side, not as interested to take bats against Wheeler because, like I said, typically outside of the beginning of the season, he does a good job of getting strikeouts. Even this year, he hasn't really allowed any power whatsoever. So certainly more interested in the Philly bats.
Then we got the Cubs and the Reds. Kyle Hendricks going to be going for the Cubbies. The last time that he faced the Reds, he gave up 6 runs back on July the 29th. Is the Reds a potential stack that you're already looking at?
Probably not. I tend to think that Hendricks is a pretty good pitcher, at least in real life terms. Generally does a good job of limiting production. The strikeouts aren't really there from a DFS standpoint, but less than 1 home run per 9 innings this year. Doesn't walk guys, keeps guys off base, typically can get relatively deep in the games. The Reds do have some solid left-handed bats with Winker and Moustakas and Votto. But with it being, or we're guessing, it being a pretty large slate, probably 12 games, I think there's going to be spots that I like to attack more than Hendricks.
We look at this Cubs lineup, especially with Chris Bryant out. Ian Happ is a guy that I kind of been looking to a lot. Is that guy that you like?
Yeah, he's typically been hitting towards the top of the lineup or at the top of the lineup for Chicago, which has been nice. Switch hitter, has some power. Tyler Mahle listed on one site that I'm looking at for the Reds. Wade Miley listed on a different site. I think Miley just pitched, but I could be wrong. Neither one is a guy that I'd really be afraid of, though. If it's Mahle, he's someone that typically does much better against righties than lefties, but Happ would have the platoon advantage. If it's Miley, he's someone that typically doesn't do well against anybody with a bat, and so Happ would still have the advantage.
Yeah, Tyler is listed as a starter at MLB.com, but as we all know, things do tend to change a lot. Next up, we got the Rays and the Marlins. Of course, the Rays were supposed to play on Thursday night, and I know just living here in Tampa, following some of the reporters, and kind of how that scene unfolded at Tropicana Field. Ryan Yarbrough was supposed to get the start tonight, but now he is slated to get the start tomorrow against the Marlins.
Yeah, I think it's actually a little bit better matchup for Yarbrough, who is still not the most appealing pitcher. It's definitely a spot where I'm going to be interested to see where ownership comes in because he's just not a really high strikeout pitcher. And he's also got at least some risk as far as how deep into the game they let him go. He's coming off of a start where he threw 97 pitches. But we've seen a lot of shorter starts out of him this year as well. Obviously, in the past, they'd used him more as an opener. And they said coming into the season that he was going to be a true starter. But they haven't really treated him like one. So I think there's plenty of risk, and he's not a great strikeout pitcher anyway. But with it being a matchup against the Marlins, I think you probably do see some ownership going there, assuming that the price tag's reasonable, just because everyone knows that it's a good matchup against Miami. So we kind of talked about it, Josh and I, on the morning show yesterday when we thought he was going to face the Orioles, that it was an okay matchup, but he just has pretty legitimate concerns from a DFS standpoint. And those concerns are going to be the same in an even better matchup against Miami.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know who's going to be on the mound for Miami, but you look at these Rays bats, obviously being here in Tampa, you get to kind of get a feel of these bats, but, are they a team you're looking at offensively as potential, maybe some low ownership?
Yeah, they're a team that I typically do like offensively because they normally have a lineup that matches up pretty well with whatever pitchers, assuming that the Miami doesn't have a really good pitcher going. But if you have a righty out there, you'll have guys like Meadows, Brandon Lau, Ji-Man Choi, Tsutsugo, who has power with the platoon advantage. If it's a lefty for Miami, you get the platoon advantage for Hunter Renfroe, for Jose Martinez. So regardless, you're going to have guys in this lineup that have a lot of power. And on a lot of slates, it seems like they kind of go overlooked for some of the more, popular names.
Then we got the Nationals and the Red Sox. Max Scherzer slated to get the start for the Nationals. Chris Mazza slated to get the start for the Red Sox. These are two guys who were supposed to start tonight, meaning Thursday night. Max Scherzer, by the way, his price, they were going up against the Phillies, was $10,900 on DraftKings, $10,600 on FanDuel. Chris on the other side, $4,800 and $5,500 respectively.
Yeah, so assuming Scherzer is going to be one of the most or the most expensive pitcher on the slate, but I don't have any issue with that here going up against the Red Sox team that has not been good this season. You still have some solid bats in there with Devers, Martinez, and Bogarts, Moreland to some extent, but just not the same quality of lineup that it was in the past. Obviously, no Mookie Betts really hurts them, and Scherzer is a great pitcher. So the one negative would be that they do have some left-handed power and he can run into issues there. But unless the price tag goes up from where it was supposed to be yesterday against Philly, I'm still going to be really, really interested in Scherzer. And Chris Mazza, I assume, will be the cheapest or one of the cheapest pitchers on the slate. And I really just don't care. He nothing in his minor league numbers stood out as something that made me interested in rostering him. He's made, I believe, a couple appearances this year. I think he's thrown like 5 innings, so it's not like he's fully stretched out even. Not interested in Mazza, but certainly interested in going to Scherzer.
Are the Nats bats in that case become someone that you're targeting?
Yeah, I think so, because even though this is another lineup that's not as formidable as it was last year, but you still get a nice combination of power and just guys that put the ball in play, which obviously gives you upside in DFS. Trey Turner comes with the stolen base upside as well, but you get a ton of power from Juan Soto, who's one of the better hitters in the game. Cabrera has some pop, Kendrick has some pop, Suzuki's got good power for a catcher. So still it's not as fun a lineup to stack as it used to be, but still either mini stacking or just at least being able to build around like Turner, Soto, and or Kendrick in the middle of that order is still pretty appealing.
Then we got the Dodgers and the Rangers. Dustin May on the hill for the Dodgers. Mike Minor on the hill for the Rangers. Dustin May, I mean, obviously the thing that concerns you from a DFS perspective is only one strikeout in his last appearance.
Yeah, May is really weird to me because he's one of the top pitching prospects in baseball. He has been for a couple of years, or for a few years. But his minor league numbers never jumped off the page as far as strikeouts go. But it seems like they should based on his stuff. He throws 97, 98 miles an hour. He has some of the nastiest movement on his fastball that I've seen in the majors, especially if somebody that throws that hard. It's really weird to me that the strikeout numbers have really never been there at the level that you would expect someone with that kind of stuff to have. Maybe he gets there eventually, but until that's the case, it's someone that you really want to be aware of where his price comes in, because he's typically going to be relatively expensive because of the name value that he has and because of his prospect status. But, obviously strikeouts are king in DFS, so you don't really want to pay a premium for a guy that just hasn't really shown elite strikeout ability at any level so far.
Mike Minor, obviously, you look at the stat line, it's not been a good start for him here in 2020. 0-5 on the year, only 29 strikeouts, near 7 ERA. Pitching at home, he's pitched there 3 times this year, nearly a 5 ERA. Obviously, the Dodger bats are always going to be a lineup that everyone's going to look towards. For me, it's always, can you construct a roster when you're stacking Dodger bats?
Yeah, for sure. And so one other thing I wanted to mention on May, because I kind of just forgot to make the obligatory mention that Texas is terrible, and you don't have to be a great strikeout pitcher to rack up strikeouts here. So obviously a good matchup, and I'm sure he'll get some ownership. But on the other side, Minor not off to a great start this year. Obviously a terrible matchup against the Dodgers, who have a ton of power in their lineup. I think with it being, we're guessing it's going to be a 12-game slate, there's going to be enough value that you can get to the Dodgers bats, whether you're find a pitcher to pay down for it or there's just enough cheap bats on the slate to go to. I think that you'll be able to do it. Minor, I still think, despite his start to this year, I still think is a decent pitcher, but the Dodgers are always a team that I'm looking to stack just because of how much power there is top to bottom in that lineup.
Then we got the Royals and the White Sox. Reynaldo Lopez going for the White Sox. It'll be his second start since coming off the 10-day IL. And then for the Royals, we got Danny Duffy.
There's also probably, I just thought of it, there's a decent chance probably that Jordan Lyles gets the start for Texas because he was supposed to pitch on Thursday. If that's the case, then I go from liking the Dodgers to just absolutely loving the Dodgers and wanting as much as I can get. As far as the Royals and White Sox game, Reynaldo Lopez, not very good his first time out, just basically an enigma from a fantasy standpoint. You had a couple of years ago where it looked like he was turning the corner and really going to solidify himself as a mainstay in their rotation and live up to his prospect status. And then he kind of just fell off the face of the earth and hasn't really been good since. It's a pretty good matchup against Kansas City, but unless his price tag is cheap, I don't really see myself getting there. I will have some interest in Duffy, especially if he's in that like $6,800 range on DraftKings where he normally finds himself. It's a really, really scary matchup against the White Sox because they do have a ton of right-handed power. But Duffy's strikeout stuff has been good this year. He's a pitcher in the past that's kind of shown inconsistency, but so far this year, he has a 28% strike percentage to hitters from both sides of the plate. He does still give up some power with a 203 ISO to righties, and that's the concern. There's not a lot of margin for error when you're facing Tim Anderson, Moncada, Grandal, Abreu, Jimenez, Encarnacion, Luis Robert, all from the right side. It can go south pretty quickly, but I think that'll probably help keep his salary lower, and it'll make it so you can use him as an SP2 and get to teams like the Dodgers.
Yeah, I mean, Abreu obviously had a tremendous weekend last weekend. He's right now when you look at the hottest hitters in baseball, he's right up there, batting 500. So yeah, he has been on absolute fire. In terms of the Royals bats, Sal Perez is obviously at that catcher spot, is always someone people are going to be looking at. But is there some other Royals bats that have been treating you well, recently?
Not that have been treating me well, but I think that you'll probably get a really good salary on Ryan O'Hearn, who typically is in the middle of this order. He hits from the left side, has some power. One of Lofty's favorite players in baseball for I don't really know what reason, but a good spot against Ronaldo Lopez. So that's a spot you can go to for value. You don't really like going to value bats at first base all that much because there's so much opportunity cost to the position, but you're at least not totally punting it with O'Hearn. He does have some power, and Lopez has allowed a 210 ISO to lefties since last season.
I want to let you know about a giveaway that we do have going on where you can win a month of Awesemo Plus MLB access. Just reply to the pinned tweet on the Awesemo Twitter account, which is at Awesemo_com, with your prediction of which team scores the most runs tonight, and follow the instructions on the graphic to make sure you are eligible. So let you know about that Twitter giveaway that we got going on right now over at the Awesemo Twitter handle, Awesemo_com. Then we got the Pirates and the Brewers. Derek Holland. I just feel like I'm just going to roster Brewers because Derek Holland's on the mound.
Yeah, pretty much. He kind of, I think he had like one or two starts this year where it seemed like he was really putting things together. He's someone that I convinced myself when he was with the Giants a year or two ago that he figured some things out, but it just doesn't seem like it's the case. The strikeout stuff's been about average this year, but he's allowed a 329 ISO to righties so far, 287 expected ISO. Since the start of last year, he's allowed a 325 ISO to righties, which is just absurd. So looking to the right-handed power in the Milwaukee lineup, you have obviously Al Garcia, you have Keston Hiura, Smoke, not the best from the right side, but still has that advantage. Ryan Braun, right-handed. I think that it's just a really high upside spot to target home runs.
We always talk about the Pirates and the lack of offense that Pirates bring to the table. So is Corbin Burnes going for the Brewers somebody that's on the radar?
I'm really interested in Burnes here because when he came up last year with Milwaukee, he looked like he had the stuff to really be dominant, but it turned out that he could not get left-handed hitters out. He was lights out against righties, but just pounded by lefties. Last year, he struck out 38% of righties. He only struck out 19% of lefties. He allowed a 373 ISO to lefties. This year, he's added a cutter. He's throwing it 37% of the time to lefties, whereas last year it didn't really exist. So he has this pitch that he's created basically. So far, it has a 17.5% swinging strike percentage to lefties. He's allowed no power on it so far. And so I think that at the very least, the fact that he's getting those swings and misses on this new pitch, he's struck out 1/3 of the lefties he's faced so far. I think that if he really has turned the corner and can get lefties out, he's going to be a very, very good pitcher very quickly, I think. And I don't think that the salaries are going to catch up really that fast.
We mentioned about Tristan McKenzie for the Indians, and this is going to be fascinating to see what his salary is on DK and FanDuel.
Yeah, I think so. And I remember in his first start, he was either 5,400 or 5,800 on DraftKings. And so my assumption is that it'll go up. He had a great start, but I would be surprised if you get the same sort of respect for him that Yahoo is giving him, where he's the highest priced pitcher on the slate. I would expect that they bump it to maybe like mid 7Ks, even low 8Ks, but I think it'll probably still be at least a reasonable price point. Pulling up his numbers on FanGraphs now because I don't know exactly how his minor league numbers look, but I know he is one of Cleveland's top prospects. FanGraphs has him as the number 3 prospect in the system. He struck out last year. He pitched 90 2/3 innings at Double-A. He struck out 24% of hitters, walked 7.7%, didn't allow much power. So, a decent strikeout percentage at Double-A, especially considering he was only, I think, 22 last year. So, or 21 or 22 last year. So, young for the level, which is good to see. I think he looks like he should be good, and the Cardinals are a kind of middle of the road matchup. So, I'll be more interested if we do get a cheaper, 6,500, 7K price tag. If it gets up into the 8K range. It's not that I think it becomes unplayable, but it starts to, just be a lot less appealing.
Well, that's where, I'm going to look at that ownership. I mean, let's just say he's 8,000. Just throw a number out there. Like, I kind of feel like when your first start, you go out there and strike out 10 guys. I'm thinking if he's 8K, that ownership's going to be pretty much up there.
Yeah, and obviously it depends also on the rest of the pricing. But let's say McKenzie's 8K and Burnes is 8K, I'd rather go to Burnes. If Burnes is 8,500 and McKenzie's 7K, then I think that there's a lot of merit in going to McKenzie, especially if the ownership is kind of evenly distributed amongst those two.
In terms of the other side of the Cardinals, Ponce de Leon getting the start for, or expected to get the start for the Cardinals, I guess we should say. We should probably say for all these teams with
Right.
everything that's going on over the past couple of days. What's your take on him going up against the Indians lineup, which obviously is they're a lineup you fear.
Yeah, they're a pretty scary lineup. They have a lot of left-handed power. Ponce de Leon so far this year has been really good. He's struck out about 30% of hitters that he's faced so far. The splits are certainly favorable as far, or they favor. He strikes out right-handed hitters at a much higher clip at 42% this year compared to 24% of lefties. He's given up some power to lefties, which isn't really what you want to see when you talk about having to face Francisco Lindor and Carlos Santana and Jose Ramirez. So another guy that I think it's going to be really price dependent. Like if you tell me that I have to pay $8,500 on DraftKings to roster Daniel Ponce de Leon against the Indians, I think I'm going to pass pretty quickly. But if you say, oh, the Indians are good, so you only have to pay $6,800 for Ponce de Leon, then it starts to become pretty appealing.
Then, of course, we're back in Coors Field, so I guess the question simply is, hey, where are the Rockies going to come up in that top stacks tool?
Yeah, I think it's a more appealing matchup for the Padres than the Rockies. Assuming so, the listed pitchers right now we have Antonio Senzatella for the Rockies and Garrett Richards for the Padres. Still, not looking to roster either pitcher unless the pricing is really, really weird. But Richards does have better stuff than Senzatella does. And we mentioned it a lot that while the ball does carry better in Colorado, a lot of the reason that you like stacking in cores is because of how many extra hits there are. The outfield is huge, more balls fall in, singles turn into doubles, etc. And so obviously when you have a pitcher that pitches to contact like Senzatella does, that's a little bit more beneficial than someone like Garrett Richards that at least has the potential to go out there and make you not hit the ball. So obviously I'm interested in both offenses, but I think that, if that is the pitching matchup, I'll have more interested in the San Diego side.
And the thing to me always when we're talking about a game of Coors Field is just salaries. And as we mentioned, we don't know what the salaries are going to be, but just based on history, we can kind of know that we're going to have to pay up for both these teams.
Yeah, and one Coors at least it feels like has been pretty disappointing this year too. I know I haven't had much success stacking in Coors, but with it being probably a 12-game slate, you should have relatively low ownership on most stacks. But I think if the salaries are expensive on the Padres and the Rockies, it'll probably keep their ownership down a bit more. So I really like going to them on these bigger slates because typically the ownership, just doesn't get nearly as high as it would on smaller ones.
Yeah, and if people have not seen the bomb that Tatis hit off the building here today or yesterday, man, that kid is absolutely balling just right now. Then we got the Athletics and the Astros. Chris Bassett, who was supposed to pitch on Thursday, he gets to start here, and Lance McCullers getting the start for the Astros.
Yeah, pretty rough break for Chris Bassett going from facing Texas to facing the Astros. Not really the move that you want. And he goes from, I think, being one of the best pitching options yesterday to essentially being someone I'm not interested in here. Obviously, more pitchers to choose from than we thought we were going to have yesterday, and a much worse matchup against Houston. On the other side, you have McCullers, who has been really disappointing this year from a strikeout standpoint. He's only struck out about 18.5% of hitters, regardless of which side of the plate they hit from. He's given up a ton of power to lefties so far. Started out the year at least having trouble with his curveball, it seemed like. So not really interested in either pitcher. I think if I had to go to one, I would lean towards McCullers just because while both teams have a lot of power, the A's do have a bit more strikeout upside in their lineup for McCullers. But I think you're going to end up just being able to find pitching that you like better on this slate.
In terms of the bats in this game, do you favor one team over the other?
I'd favor the Astros, I think. It's so tough with McCullers because I still don't really know what to make of him. Like, he's such a weird pitcher anyway because he relies so heavily on his curveball, and his curveball is so different than pretty much anyone else's that it's always tough to really diagnose what's going wrong with him. So I don't feel confident going against him, but I do feel confident saying he's given up a lot of power to lefties so far. Which makes Matt Olson stand out from the A's side. As far as Bassett goes, he's allowed a 226 expected ISO to lefties, 146 to righties this year. So again, you're looking for the platoon advantage there, which would point you towards Kyle Tucker, who would probably stand out the most from the Astros side.
Then we got the Mariners and the Angels. Andrew Heaney is on the mound for the Angels.
Yeah, got another guy that it just seems like is really, really difficult to get right in Andrew Heaney. He has good strikeout stuff. He also has the ability to just get absolutely destroyed. So far this year, a 24.8% strikeout percentage for Heaney. So, the strikeout upside's there. The Mariners have plenty of strikeouts in their lineup. They'll have a mostly right-handed lineup you would expect in this spot, but Heaney struck out 28.5% of righties since the start of last season. Problem is he's also allowed a 220 expected ISO to them. So, a really, really boom or bust spot. I think that if his salary comes in, in the mid 7Ks or around 8K, you probably get a lot of ownership going to Heaney, but, for good reason because he'll project well. I think it's a spot where if you're playing a lot of lineups, you probably can look to both sides because you'll want to have Heaney's upside, but you also can look to like Kyle Lewis and Austin Nola as right-handed power bats from the Seattle lineup.
In terms of for the Mariners, we got Nick on the mound, the 24-year-old left-handed pitcher. He's recently moved into the rotation. What's your, I don't feel like I'm really too many times looking at Seattle pitching, but what's your take on him?
So my take on him used to be that I had no idea how he was in the major leagues. He's been better this year, which is going to be expensive for me if it holds up. He's struck out 24.5% of righties so far. He's not getting swings and misses. I don't really know how he's doing it. I don't totally believe in it, at least, as of yet. And it is a tough matchup against the Angels. I'm not really interested in taking a left-handed pitcher that I don't think is very good. That's also facing Mike Trout, Anthony Rendon, and, the rest of that Angels lineup. But it's at least a spot that I'm interested in seeing how he does because, maybe he did make changes and he's not going to be the terrible pitcher he was with the Padres.
And then our final game of the night is the Giants and the D-backs. We have no idea who's pitching on either side as we do this show, so we can't really break down any pitching in this one. But what's kind of your take on the hitters on both sides of this?
Yeah, so I'm trying to pull up to see who ended up pitching yesterday. So Gossman went yesterday for the Giants, and Logan Webb went for the Giants. So, and I think Cueto pitched recently.
Yeah, Cueto pitched Tuesday night, I want to say.
That sounds right. Yeah, so I don't know. I'll prefer the Diamondbacks bats to the Giants bats. I would feel pretty confident saying because they're just typically better, and I do like the Diamondbacks lineup. They have a nice combination of power, speed, switch hitters, so that they have the platoon advantage pretty consistently. So I do like the Diamondbacks in general. Obviously, it'll depend to some extent on who's pitching for San Francisco.
Yeah, obviously, as we head in tomorrow, it's going to be a lot about what is the main slate games. That's going to be the first thing, and obviously the salaries, because as we do this early bird podcast, the salaries are not known. But of course, when you're looking to get that edge to build your lineup, you need to get an Awesemo Plus MLB weekly pass for $15.95. This gives you the access to player projections, ownership projections, the top pitchers tools, and so much more. So you got to check out that MLB weekly pass for $15.95. Go to awesemo.com/join to sign up for that weekly pass today. So as we sit here with no salaries, obviously I know you're sitting here waiting for when those salaries are going to pop up, but what are you looking forward to tomorrow in terms of building your lineups?
Yeah, so one thing that I did, the Diamondbacks did not play yesterday. So I think you're going to get Zach Gallen for the Diamondbacks against the Giants. That's someone that I love rostering. I think he's really, really good. If he is pitching, he'll come in with one of the highest strikeout percentages on the slate at 29.5% this year. So he'd be someone that if I'm not quite paying up to the Scherzer range, assuming you get, a couple $1,000 discount to Gallen, I'd be really interested in. But outside of that, just excited to hopefully have a close to full baseball slate. I think it looks like a pretty good one as far as a lot of offenses that look appealing, a lot of pitchers that I think look appealing. So it doesn't seem like it's shaping up to be one of those slates where, you're really holding your nose at who you have to roster. I think it should be a pretty fun one with some spread out ownership, hopefully.
Yeah, I think we've all been kind of scrambling over the last 2 days of whether we're, 2 days ago with the NBA, with everything that was going on there when I had so much Nick Vucevic, I was trying to figure out how I could swap him out at the very last second. And then, of course, on Thursday night when it became very clear that if we were going to have baseball, it was going to be a 2-game main slate. I was trying to figure out, okay, well, I guess I'm going to have a lot of Ryan Yarborough. Right. How much is too much? I hate playing slate to 2 games. I just hate it.
Yeah, I withdrew because I had registered for the 6-game baseball slate yesterday. I withdrew once it got down to 3 games. I was just like, yeah, I'm not doing this. But I did kind of think that the Wednesday was kind of fun from a strategy standpoint because you got the game kind of canceled like throughout the night and you got the lineup changing. So like from a strategy standpoint, it was kind of fun because like it kind of based on who was left. For example, it was like you knew such a large percentage of the field was going to go to Robbie Ray and go to like Oakland bats. You could kind of just say like I'm just going to play against the field and feel really confident that you knew where they were going. So you don't normally get that kind of a opportunity, and so it was kind of fun for a change at least.
Yeah, we'll see what what kind of slate we have tomorrow. Of course, be sure to be locked in Awesemo.com on Friday. We got the strategy show at 11 a.m. Eastern time, and then we've got Live Before Lock at 6 p.m. Eastern time. Of course, that is going to wrap it up for the MLB Early Bird Podcast. Of course, be sure to check out our sponsor, Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports, as they now have CSV Upload and CSV Edit to make your multiple lineups. So make better choices. Choose Yahoo Daily Fantasy. Of course, be sure to subscribe to the Early Bird Podcast right there at the Awesemo MLB podcasting channel. So that's going to wrap it up for this edition of the MLB Early Bird Podcast.